How's it going, guys? This is John from Acosta Productions. I'm here today with Jason Clarke, who's a digital media producer, digital media producer at Stratford Festival, which is a theater company in Ontario, I believe. Is that correct?
In Ontario, Canada, yeah.
Ontario, yes. Sorry. I'm clearly an American.
That's okay.
So how you doing today, man? What's going on?
Doing well.
Excellent. So, Jason, could you tell us just a little bit about, you say digital media producer. That is your title here at this theater, correct?
Yeah.
So what exactly does that entail? Because my personal opinion, when I think of theater, I think of plays, I think of Shakespeare, I think of this and that. So can you kind of explain what you do in regards to media there?
Yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, our organization is very it has a lot of history. It's 62 years old, and my position is really very young in its infancy. And as far as the organization goes, it's only about 3 or 4 years old. And when I first started, it was very much producing content, video content, behind the scenes, interviews with actors, that kind of thing, photography, whatever. But over the last couple of years, it's definitely morphed into more. And so my position kind of has touch points on all sorts of digital projects that we work on, from websites to virtual tours to 3D mapping. Like it's all over the place now. With video still being an important part, it's just taken a different spin.
So you're kind of, you've taken the lead role as the digital production specialist essentially, but then you're ultimately going to be introducing all this other new content and media consumption that we probably may or may not never heard of before or never used before or created as video producers, correct?
Yeah, and as you said, you think of theater and you think of plays and everything else. Yeah. The organization has been really great in embracing new ideas, embracing new technologies, and looking at different ways to help kind of elevate our digital presence, elevate our marketing approach, all that sort of stuff. So
that's really interesting.
It's been good. Yeah.
Oh, I hate to interrupt. Yeah, I'm so just blown by that, because I think of other companies when I think of innovation in regards to production and media, but it's really interesting to see a theater that's actually taking advantage of the media that we have and the technology that we have and pushing things forward. I really want to get into that in just a minute with you. So, but before we get into it, because I could jump in right now if you wanted to, I want to talk a little bit about your past, your history, how you got to where you are now, because I love asking my guests that, because I think everyone wants to know how you got to where you are. So how'd you succeed, Jason?
Well, it was an interesting story, because I actually started my kind of introduction to creative space in the theater world. I used to do theater. I used to be a stage manager, all the behind-the-scenes stuff, and really liked that. And then after high school, kind of didn't get really into it anymore, kind of fell away from it. But a friend of mine who I worked on a lot of projects with, theater projects with, approached me about doing a film. It was a film. He's always wanted to be a filmmaker. So he said, can you give me a hand? We worked well together, all that stuff. I said, sure, yeah, I'll give it a try. I've never done anything. So I kind of stepped in as the producer at that point. The film was completely terrible. It went absolutely nowhere. I think we got a 3-minute trailer out of it, and that was about all we got.
I've totally been on that route too, so I totally get it. You put in hours and you just come out with a 3-minute piece of shit.
Yeah, it was really not great. It was shot on a handy cam, and we had like a microphone on a broomstick. Like, it was bad. But
that sounds about right. Yeah.
But we recognized that it wasn't very good, and we went back and we started making some short films. We created a small company from there and started making a couple short films, started doing some commercial work, and just kind of really grew our skills from there. But interestingly enough, that's where I learned. I learned on the go. It was very much guerrilla filmmaking. I learned by failing. I learned by having that, a broomstick and a microphone don't work. And how do I make that better? And kind of went from there.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people, especially these days, it's so much easier because everything's so accessible. Your iPhone, your Android phone, I'll have 1080p cameras on them, so it's completely accessible, and there's no stopping anyone. Yet I feel like because we have all those tools, no one seems to want to do it anymore, properly at least. I don't know. I'm not seeing very many people these days that have the ambition or actually going for it. They just talk about it, and I feel like when we had those struggles in the past where we had to use a broomstick to make stuff happen, that's when it was actually flourishing. When people like you and I, even though our stuff was complete shit, at least we were trying, right?
Yeah, and it's tough because Anymore, you're right. Technology is so accessible, and you could shoot something with your phone, and it's high definition and amazing quality. But I think what we learned back then was refining our skills for storytelling, and we didn't have the equipment and we didn't have the money. I always look back and say, I almost wish when we started doing that film and when we started doing our short films, it was 10 years in the future, because I don't know if it would have changed my path. I don't know what would have happened, because the technology is so much different and everything's so much easier, so much more accessible.
Yeah.
Funding, Indiegogo, like everything, it just seems so much easier anymore. How that would have changed, where we got or what we did and everything else.
That's a great question to ask. I mean, at some point, do you kind of think, okay, because there's all this accessibility, we've just gotten lazy? It's like, oh, I could do it now. It's not really that. Anyone could do it at this point, so it's not really that appeasing to do. That's kind of how I feel about it these days. And personally, I got to be honest. Once I started getting my big cameras, I lost ambition to do short films and stuff, because I was doing it more for clientele, and I kind of lost that drive I had as a youngster to tell my own stories. I still want to, but it's like, I don't know. There's just it's weird. I like the whole idea of thinking 10 years in the future. If I were 10 years younger now, what would it be like?
Yeah, yeah, and you can't look at it too much. I think really those experiences were beneficial for me, because I was limited by technology, so it helped me refine my storytelling. And then once I sort of got caught up with storytelling, I was able to start catching up with equipment, and because it was changing so fast and everything else, I was able to do that. But I think another avenue that helped me grow, and another thing that we did is in another city close to Stratford, London, Ontario, which is a very large city in the area, we started a film festival. And it was a short film festival, and it was a way to connect with other filmmakers. It was a way to see some stuff, and it was really to celebrate the film community that we had in the London area.
That's excellent. Can I pause you there and ask you how you did that? Because that's really cool. You actually started your own festival. That's amazing. How did you go about looking for filmmakers and getting them to submit their films?
It started with the fact that we realized we had a short film, one of our first short films, and we wanted to screen it, and we're like, okay, let's find a couple film festivals in London, we'll submit it. And there wasn't much. There wasn't really anything happening in our community, so that's where we were kind of like, okay, we'll just do something on our own. And so we just went into a bar. My cousin ran a bar, so we said, can we rent it out for the night? And they had some TVs, and we played our film on the TVs, and there was 100 people that came out, just our kind of friends and family. And so then the next one, it was kind of like, oh, okay, can we do this again? But maybe we should talk to a couple other people and see if there's a couple other filmmakers that want to get their film in too, and we can charge $5 or whatever. So we did, and we had another 200 people. And so then the next year it was like, okay, now we need to maybe actually legitimize this thing and put a call for submissions out. Got a lot of submissions, and over the years we had, we would screen between 15 and 20 local films. Which was great, because I think it really helped to elevate the community in London and helped kind of allow people to realize that there was actually some really great art being produced in the city, and we were just kind of acting as an avenue to screen that stuff, and it worked out great. And we just 2 years ago we decided to stop doing it, because we felt like it had kind of reached its point, and new technologies, YouTube, like when we started, YouTube was nothing. So now it's like people have other ways of being able to distribute their content, so we were less relevant.
Yeah, and that's cool though. I mean, you saw a need for that, and you absolutely tackled it. I'd wish there was something like that in my town. I mean, no one really. There was only the big ones, but there wasn't any like guerrilla style people that were like, hey, we're all filmmakers. Let's put together this awesome concept and do it. So I just think that's really, really cool.
Well, and one of the big things we really wanted to do was stray away from that idea of the typical film festival. We didn't necessarily have you're the winner and you get second place. We eventually started incorporating in some awards and stuff, but it was really profit sharing. We took the profits from the event and we divided it up against 15 filmmakers, and it was nothing. It was $100 or $150, but it was a way to just say, you earned this, here's your money, go make another film kind of thing. So,
yeah, but it
worked really well.
Firsthand that seeing your film, like A, in front of like a bunch of people watching it, and then B, seeing it on a bigger screen than you're used to, or on a bunch of TVs, that's like really cool. It's like one of the coolest things about being a filmmaker is screening your stuff. So that's like, more than anything, I think that's the coolest thing you provided, is that opportunity for people that probably didn't have that opportunity before. They thought they could never do that with someone. So I think it's really neat, man. It's like a claim to fame for you. You should totally brag about it.
It was good. We do. I brag about it every now and again.
Right on. Cool, man. So you started a film festival. You started from nothing. You started creating some traction. How did you get into theater? Back into theater, because you were in theater before.
Yeah, that was kind of the interesting part, funny part. You know, it came back full circle. This job came up. I had actually just started a different career path. I was doing all this film and stuff, and it was just kind of a hobby, and it was fun, and it was great, whatever. Wasn't really making a lot of money. I did a couple freelance jobs, got a little bit of money out of it, nothing big, but never really saw how I could transfer it into a career. And then, so I went back to school to do nonprofit management, which is completely unrelated, but and then my friend who was working here at the festival called me up and said, hey, they've got another position. You know, it's about, you know, producing video and photo content. Like, I think you'd be really great at it. Are you interested? And I said, well, yeah, but you know, I just finished school and this is not what I went to school for. But you know, how can I say no to this opportunity? So obviously I jumped on it, and it's been great ever since. And not only that, it's really helped, I think, even further refine my skills, because like I said, the festival's so willing to try new things and to do, you know, different things. It allowed us to say, you know, they say, can we do this? And we say, yeah, we have to look into it. And so we do a little bit of research and we do all this stuff, and then we would pull it off. And you know, that's helped me in my other stuff, my freelance stuff, in other avenues as well. So my skills have even just furthered over the last 4 years, have just kind of really started to develop. I think.
That's awesome. So you're learning as you go. You're getting paid to do it, and the best part is that you're creating really great content for a theater that is now exploring other avenues of content, of media. So I think it's neat. Can we talk a little bit about, just in regards to production, just so our audience is clear, what kind of cameras or what kind of equipment are you currently using to produce this stuff for the theater? And also, what kind of videos are you producing? Promos, previews?
It's changed over the last year. Before, we used to do a lot more behind the scenes, like this is a set piece for this show and this is how they made it and all that kind of stuff. And then actor interviews and that kind of thing. And what we've really shifted to lately is we actually have an external production company that comes in and they shoot clips from the show. And this is usually typically used for press and everything else. But what we've started doing is taking that footage and then reconstructing it into trailers. So 1 minute, 30-second trailers that we can then use to promote the shows in a really energetic and marketing kind of front standpoint.
Yeah, gotcha.
In the past, we would use these when we had these full clips of a scene that would be 3 minutes long or whatever. That's what we would use. But we were realizing that it's hard to, especially with Shakespeare, you take a scene from a play that's 3 scenes in and you say, here's the play, and people look at it and they go, I don't understand this.
First of all, the English is weird, and secondly, it's jumping into Shakespeare. You can't really do that, you know, unless you know.
So the trailers, I think, have really helped to make it seem way more accessible, and you can tell a lot better story and a lot better emotion. It's not just like, what is this confusing scene? It's, oh, this is a really epic play with fighting and kissing and romance, like all this stuff, and you can do that a lot better. So.
Got it.
So, you know, that's kind of what we really are producing now. As far as equipment goes, sitting over here, I just got a GH4, and it's amazing.
Nice. That's what I've heard. A lot of people are actually starting to use the GH4. They love it.
Love it. If only just for shooting in 4K and then downscaling it to 1080. I can essentially zoom in 4 times and not lose any resolution. So when I'm shooting stuff, it's like, just going to shoot this really wide and I'll frame it later, which is great. And it's, you know, it helps when you're kind of on the fly and really want to refine the shots to what you're looking for. Yeah,
I got a question for you now. So you're one of the few that are actually shooting in 4K these days, or at least as far as I've interviewed. What's your take on 4K in regards to, like, if someone's just getting started, do they need a 4K camera right now, or is it something they could wait on? What would you recommend?
Well, kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, the technology's there. It's everywhere. It's in your phone. It's accessible. An $1,800 4K camera is available. Like, it's so cheap. It's everywhere. You don't need it, though. You definitely don't need it. And it took us a long time to get to this camera. It was only in looking at what we're going to be producing next year, which is more trailers, more content that way, that it was like, okay, this is maybe something that we should be investing in just to bring up the quality a bit. But it's really, you gotta refine your skills, refine your story. You can do that in 720. You can do that in 1080. You can do that on DV.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's about the story, right? 100%. One thing I like to also tell people is that 1080 exists, 720 is there. There's 4K though, which it's the big hurrah right now because everyone's pushing those new TVs. It's like a marketing scheme, right? But the reality is, how many people do you know that has a 4K TV right now? Like I don't know. In the U.S., it's not as broad as it should be, I guess, or the market says it is. How about in Canada?
Yeah, no, it's still so in its infancy, and this is what people watch.
I know. At the end of the day, it's like come on, you can shoot something on a 480, right?
Yeah.
DV, and it still look amazing on the iPhone these days.
Yeah. So it's not there. What I like as I said, what I like about it is I'm getting more color depth, I'm getting more resolution, I'm getting more sharpness. I'm having the ability to then take a 4K image, downscale it to 1080, and zoom it and do whatever, I manipulate it however I want.
That's really the biggest
benefit.
benefit.
I see the benefit. Yeah.
Likewise, yeah. Being able to zoom in, because let's say you have somebody in a shot you don't want, you can crop the shot and not lose any resolution if you're going to be outputting it in HD. Yeah, that's the only reason I would shoot at 4K too. So.
And just some of the stuff I've seen with the GH2s, the way you can transcode footage, you can essentially take the 4K footage and turn it into ProRes, I think 444 HQ quality 1080 stuff. Wow, that's pretty nice to be able to have that at your disposal.
Absolutely. I guess I haven't used the GH4 yet. So what kind of software are you using to compress or transcode it? If you don't mind.
I haven't gotten into much of the transcoding yet. I've really just been taking the 4K files and downscaling them through Premiere, but I work through Adobe Premiere.
Okay, so Premiere essentially, that's kind of what's using the codec or the proper codec to read it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We did the switch about 2 years ago. We were on Final Cut Pro. And I was when X came out, and I was kind of like, I don't think it's really going to do what we want. So we kind of held on to 7 for a little bit, and then finally it was actually my New Year's resolution. I'm like, I'm switching to Premiere, and that's how it's going to be. And it was pretty. After I did it, it was like, oh my gosh. I went back the other day to like a project I had to open in Final Cut, and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible.
I know. I mean, it's like it's standing still in time. Like they're not touching it. It's just a legacy version. So Apple has literally shelved it, and the further we get in technology, like the older it looks. It's really like a grandfather now.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy, but yeah, I mean, I come from the same background. I learned off of that system, so rest in peace. It's a hell of a good system. But Premiere is great.
It still holds on because I still have all my shortcuts are still Final Cut shortcuts. I never switched. I just kind of changed them. I've got my own shortcuts I use, so it's like I don't even know what they are anymore.
Yeah, Premiere is so customizable from what I hear. I've used it a few times. Like when I do the conversion from Final Cut 7, there's an option to like make all the shortcuts the same, right? So yeah, and you can also add your own though, which is great. So it's nice to hear you're using it. Okay, so let's move on to a little bit about the future. What you guys are doing in regards to media today, for tomorrow, for next week, for next year, 10 years down the road. You've told me some cool things we were talking earlier. Can you give us a sneak peek of one of them that you're going to be doing soon?
Yeah, so like I said, we've really kind of, the position's shifted, it's really changed. I'm not producing video content is not the sole thing that we do anymore. We really do kind of liaison for the festival in many different areas. We're just kind of in the process of doing Google virtual tours, so that's essentially street view indoors. So we have 4 venues. We've done all 4 of the venues. The last part is we're actually going to be doing all the theaters, so that when people click on a ticket and they want to see where they sit, it'll hyperlink essentially to that virtual tour, and they can look all around and see, I'm right beside the soundboard, or I'm right beside the door, or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, did you guys shoot that? Like, you guys created that content for Google? Is that what you're saying?
No, the way Google works is you have to have I think it's trusted account or supplier. So we had to hire someone to come in who's essentially a Google supplier.
Right. Gotcha. That's cool though. That's cool because you now have that ability, which is awesome, I think.
Yeah, and something, it was again something so fun to do, and just something different, and a way to kind of bring our patrons to our theaters without them having to leave, or for them to get themselves aware of where they are. We get people that come from all over, from down in the States, from all over the world. So it's nice for them to be able to kind of familiarize themselves with the space.
How big is your space? How big is the theater? I've never seen it, never been up there. So
yeah, well, so like I said, we have 4 venues. Our main venue, the building I work in, that I'm in right now, is our biggest theater. It's our flagship theater, and it seats about 1,600 people. And then there's the other ones are a little smaller and run like that. But we run from May through October, so it's a long season.
Oh yeah. Definitely. You guys are hella busy then at all times.
Yeah. And we do 12, usually about 12 productions a year, different productions. So it's large. There's a lot of stuff. I think on average we get over 500,000 visitors a year. So
wow, that's huge. So how much Shakespeare do you guys actually do?
What we started with. It's our history, our bread and butter. So it's always ever present, and it's an important tool. So usually about 4 productions a year are Shakespeare's, and then usually about 2 productions will be musicals, and then there's a lot of different contemporary other pieces as well. So it varies from year to year, but there's always a very strong emphasis on doing Shakespeare's because
awesome.
That's where we started.
So okay, let's talk a little bit more then about other tools you guys are using, other media tools and propositions that you guys are using to lure people in and really entertain them in your industry.
Yeah, so one of the other projects that I've been working on that's pretty early in development, and we're trying to figure out if it's going to happen, is looking at 3D projection mapping. So outside of our main theater, there's actually a secondary building that houses kind of our gift shop and all that kind of stuff. And the idea was to create a show on the building for patrons when they leave the other show. So they come out and they've just finished seeing a play, and then all of a sudden, oh, what's this? And they can see a whole other experience. So just a kind of a way to surprise and delight people and get them excited. And maybe, just maybe, they'll, oh, hey, there's a gift shop there. Maybe I should go in and see that gift shop.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of an interesting project. I've just kind of been learning as I go with it, and talking with different vendors and stuff like that and seeing how it goes. It's pretty neat. So
that's neat. So you're like expanding your horizons in regards to your production company or media strategy. And you're kind of learning as you go at the same time.
Yeah. So, and trying to do different things. Like, it's not something I ever thought I would be doing. It's definitely, I think it's growing. 3D projection mapping is definitely growing, but it's still, I would say, in its infancy. It's
yeah. Can you speak to how it kind of, just give us a sneak peek of how that, I mean, if somebody were interested in that, or could they go to find out, or like how do they do it? Like I don't know the first thing about it.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's seen them online. And people around here have been asking because I'm saying, oh, I'm doing this, and they're like, what is that? And I said it's basically they take a picture of the building and then they project that picture on the building, and then they can manipulate that picture to do all sorts of stuff. So maybe if there's a window, someone in the window pops their head out, or the bricks all start falling apart, or like a big giant spider comes out, or ivy grows, all these different things. And you've, I'm sure, seen lots of them on the internet. You just search projection mapping on YouTube, and there'll be lists and lists of stuff. So
it's pretty cool, and it's done through an actual projector, I'm assuming, and it's like video at that point.
Yeah,
right?
Basically, yeah. It's just you're projecting a mapped image of the building on there, and then you can kind of do whatever you want as long as the building is dark. You can simulate the fact that it's doing different things, which is kind of neat.
That's really neat. Yeah. And so, did you say you're also including that in some of your plays that you guys are producing, or is it just more for the building itself?
It's more for the building itself, and it's as patrons leave the theater once they've finished seeing a show, then it's something for them to see.
Right.
One of the things that we were looking at wanting to incorporate, though, was a marketing piece as well. So maybe it's imagery from the shows, or from different shows that people aren't at, or whatever else, to just really kind of hammer home the brand, hammer home all the shows that we are doing. Because like I said, 12 different plays. Some people only come for one, so we need to be able to tell them there's more.
Definitely. That sounds, to me, almost sounds like a trailer or a preview of a theater or a movie, like on the wall, like those movie posters they have, or the theater posters. It's like a moving theater poster is what I kind of see in my head.
Yeah, for sure. Something very similar to that is kind of the idea. Yeah.
It's pretty cool, man. Yeah. I don't even think we have time to go into the in-depth strategy. I'm so curious. Like, do you shoot green screen? Do you like project it and then you film the characters? Like, I have so many questions for you.
I don't know.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
Is there anywhere you could, if anyone's interested in that sort of thing, is there anywhere you could direct them to or guide them to see some samples you might have done, or maybe even what they can learn? They can learn how to do it themselves.
I think I did find some stuff on YouTube. Like you can do it on a really small scale. The problem is anything with a large scale requires very high powered, very ultra bright projectors. Talking like 20, 50 grand projectors. So the average do-it-yourselfer, I don't think is going to be able to like, whip together a giant Christie projector to be able to do it. But you can definitely do some stuff on a small scale. So.
Very cool, man. Okay, so I guess as we get to kind of a close here, Jason, this has been really interesting, a different take on the production field. I wanted to know kind of what your tips and tricks are to move forward and progress in regards to this field, because at the end of the day, we're all shooting with some sort of camera, some sort of audio device, and we're all working with software to create our stories. So what kind of advice can you give to succeed, and whether it be to get a job, to start a production company, or whatever, to get paid?
Yeah. If you're just starting out, you got to do free work. You got to find some charities in your community that maybe you care about or that you have a connection with, and ask them if they want something, and just start doing some free stuff. That's the only way to really learn, and you can't justify charging sometimes if you're or you can do it and you charge just a really little amount, just make it a little bit worth your time. But that's how you get started, and I think that's how you can really refine your craft a lot. And then it comes to a point where you have to turn that off. And I really, to this point, anytime I do freelance work, I don't do a lot of free work anymore. I'll heavily discount my work, everything else, but I need to make sure it's of value to me, and that it's something that I can put my heart in because I know I'm going to get paid. But and you have to value your work. Like you can't always give it away for free, so it can be tough.
I think it kind of devalues the work if you don't pay. After you've experienced, it devalues it if you aren't charging for it.
Well, and if it's where you want to go, and if you want to move forward, then you have to charge. And I know even when I first started charging people for work, I thought, this is a good wage, and it's like twice as much as I'm making at my day job and everything else. And I had clients say, you should charge more. And I was like, well, okay, if clients are telling me I should charge more, then I need to be charging more. So it can be weird to say, every time I'll do an invoice, I'll look at it and I'll go, am I really worth, like, I don't know, $75 an hour? And yes, it is, because I have my own equipment, and I'm doing all this, and I'm traveling and everything else. So
yeah, and it's also your experience. I mean, they're paying for a professional to come in. They're not paying for some college student per se to come in that has no experience. And so yeah, they're paying for all of that. I think that's the way I see it.
Yeah, exactly. So another tip, I guess, would be, don't worry so much about your video quality. Worry more about your audio quality, because I always can tell bad audio. Bad audio will always stick out. Bad video, people can forgive. Your eyes can forgive it. But if you hear crappy audio, or it's tinny, or it sounds, just like the onboard camera that's 3 miles away, it looks and sounds bad. So focus on trying to spend some money at the top to get some good audio equipment. And then you can start upgrading your video equipment, because the other nice part is audio equipment is the new things come out, and they makes things easier or better or more fun or whatever, but for the most part it's the same type of technology that's been around for a long time, and it's not changing as rapidly as video is. So you can invest some good money, invest some time in your good audio, and then get some nice new toys and video wise when you get there. So
that's a perfect way to say it, actually. First of all, I preach about that. I mean, good audio is key always. You could have a crappy, whatever phone, like a flip phone from the 2003, but if you have great audio with it to back it, then it's going to look great because it sounds great, right?
Yeah.
But I never heard someone actually explain it that way. Get great audio first so that you can get money, because your stuff's going to be awesome, and then you can progress your video and get a 4K camera. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think my only other tip is, like, take breaks. I find I can't sometimes fathom how, when it comes to editing at least, how people can sit for 10, 12 hours and just edit, and it's like, there's times I get into the groove and I'm good, but you got to step away, like even just for 10 minutes, go for a walk or whatever. just to really like let your mind absorb what you've done. And you can still be thinking about the project, and you can still be thinking about the edits you want to make or the changes you want to make, but just do it away from the computer, um, because I think it just gives you a different perspective, and you can come back to it, with a different approach. So.
Awesome. That is a fantastic tip, man. Just outside the box thinking there. Most people don't do that. I'm just as guilty as well for sitting 12 hours at a time. It'll kill you, man. It's draining, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much, man, for giving us those tips and tricks. Those are great. And if you have any questions, do you have any questions for us or any sort of shout out you want to give to anybody in the audience here?
No, if anyone is interested in checking out some of the content that we've done here at the festival, it's youtube.com/Stratford Festival, and there's tons of stuff there. So feel free to check it out. And
Awesome. And if we're looking for you, Jason. Where can our audience find you?
So my production company is it's called Two Hound Productions. So again, youtube.com/Two Hound Productions, or just twohound.com is my website. There's some content on there from some stuff that I've done, but yeah.
Awesome. All right. And guys, so you know, all those links will be in the description at this point. So you can go and give those a click. Check out Jason. Make sure to like and subscribe to his page. And let him know what you thought. If you have any questions about digital media, this guy's clearly your man. So, Jason, again, thanks so much for all your time today. Really appreciated it. And I hope you have a great week, man.
Thanks very much. I appreciate talking to you guys.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Cheers.
Bye.